We have a member of parliament in the house. Mheshimiwa is in the house with us. The new woman rep for Homa Bay County, Dr. Joyce Osogo, popularly known as Bensouda. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Salama kabisa. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the hot seat. We like having people who are in parliament on this in this studio because we've got very many questions to ask them. But we understand, of course, this is your first time in parliament. But tell us about you, first of all. Why do they call you Bensouda? Or is it you who calls yourself Bensouda, or is it other people who call you Bensouda?
Both of us call ourselves Bensouda.
Others. You have internalized the name.
Yes.
Why Bensouda?
Bensouda because of my character. Actually, let me just start by telling you that it is my official name now as we speak.
Right.
Not at the time of birth, but I've adopted it because I have been given and directed that is a name that I should own by the people. So I'm the people's Bensouda. And so my official names after doing a deed poll and an affidavit, I'm officially Joyce Osogo Bensouda.
Okay.
So it is not AKA, it is
not
Bensouda,
AKA. It's Bensouda.
my name official.
That is your name.
Yes.
As you said, because of your character. What about your character?
Personality.
And personality.
I
What is
asked
it?
them also. I asked them because I was also wondering, because this name I've been referred to in different geographical locations, in different working institutions. So quietly as a researcher, I was finding out why do they refer to me as Bensouda. They are talking about I'm straight to the point, I'm courageous, I'm up to various leadership tasks, I'm forthright, and they believe that I'm transparent and accountable in what I do. I'm hardworking, and so be it. I reviewed my own personality dynamics and said, fine, let me do a deed poll. And that's what I did. I own the name and passionately accept I am Bensouda.
Before your election as your member of parliament, what were some of the things? I mean, because it wasn't obviously before August 9th and all of that. That's not when they started calling you this. So what are some things that were happening before you decided to run for office?
Allow me to inform you that the name Bensouda did not begin at the time that I started running.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
It was before.
So why?
I have engaged in various activities, both formal and informal, non-formal. And one of them was entrepreneurship, small business, which I used to complement with as a P1 teacher. And so with all whom I interacted with, it was Bensouda. Then at the university, where I'm a lecturer, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University, quietly, the students were calling me Bensouda. And the lecturers in my faculty also came to realize that I was being referred to as Bensouda. That one had not started. I also became the Minister for Roads in county government of Kisumu. So the employees, the workers, they were referring to me as Bensouda. You know, these are three different geographical locations and institutions. So when I joined politics, those who had known me, actually they started pushing me to get into politics even before I decided. And so as I got in, they were saying, we want to push for Bensouda to be in this leadership position. So the name developed progressively. It took its roots. It has been maintained, and it has been proven and adopted.
Okay. You know, there are people who may actually have assumed that you're called Bensouda because you are working as a prosecutor before this. You know, probably she was
Not
prosecutor Bensouda. So we now understand you worked as a CEC in Kisumu County.
Yes.
You have taught at the university.
Yes.
You started off as a teacher, as a P1 teacher.
Yes.
So you are an educationist
Yes.
in your career and your profession.
Yes.
And then you've also served in government as a CEC.
Yes.
Was that your first time working in the government as a CEC?
That was my first time working in government because, as I told you, my background is education.
Yep.
Actually, I'm an educationist, all the cadres. In high school, I've also taught in vocational training centers. I've also taught at the university. I'm a researcher. So after that, based on my discipline of or the faculty which I specialized in, which is project planning and management,
Yeah.
and specialized in project monitoring and evaluation, I came in as the Minister for Roads. Yes, so it was the first time working in the government, but I believe even being a teacher, you're in the government.
You are.
Unless
you
I
are
don't
indeed.
understand your question.
You are indeed.
Yes.
So when you thought, all right, I'm hearing the voice of the people, the ground is speaking, that I should join politics, and you decided, I'm going to go into politics, why did you pick on the woman rep position?
I picked on the woman rep position because it is a position that represents, in a very basic and preliminary way of entrance into politics, to represent the voice of the women, the youths, and persons living with disability. That constitutes the rural area, which is highly suffering. It cuts across the urban areas, and therefore I felt it's going to give me the primary basic and understanding of our society as I scale up and partner with other people.
What are you, because it sounds, I mean, I think unfortunately, most who run for office romanticize this thing of women, youth, and people living with disability. It sounds like buzzwords that you're now just going to use to get along. What do you feel? And I'm going to look at the women, the youth, and the people living with disabilities in Homa Bay County, right? What do they need? What needs to happen? What needs to change?
Thank you so much. Being that I am born in Homa Bay, I'm married in Homa Bay. I've also engaged with Homa Bay. I've transversed the 8 constituencies. I understand the needs of the 3 categories. And normally I say, not men left behind. Just the same way at times in Kenya, I remember we overemphasized on protection of the girls until our boys were left behind. Homa Bay has quite a lot of challenges, which is not very unique and different from other counties. Of course, they vary because of different geographical situation. And therefore, I believe that Homa Bay County needs to be addressed in terms of their challenges and service delivery. I also want to register that even the challenges that are in Homa Bay County, which I refer to as their needs, also vary per constituency. If I look into the resource availability in Homa Bay, which of course, with the mandate of governorship, which I will not touch because we have different mandates and responsibilities that we do, but as a stakeholder, I'm very keen on, 1, utilization of the available resources, both natural resources and that can be built. That is one of my concerns. Remember, we have Lake Victoria, which is underutilized. And how can the women whom I'm going to benefit, whom I'm going to serve, not really benefit from the existence of the lake? Women have the outcry of fishing facilities, storage facilities. Women have the problem of market availability. Women have the program of entrepreneurship. I'm looking at it that how can women have built restaurants along the lake region, which of course in my mandate, I do not have the capacity to build the restaurants, but I have the capacity to advocate for them through the governor so that we have along the lake shores and the lake regions constructed restaurants in partnership with investors. If we leave that alone, we have local women who engage in fish business. We see them with simple troughs carrying what I refer to my language as omena. I supplied a lot of troughs along the lakes during my campaigns to support the availability of their troughs which they have. Why? For them to carry their fish. Simple, basic trough. You'll find a local woman in the local region. At times, because of the overburdening of the responsibilities within the family, they will not afford. I'm looking at them being empowered in a simple way to ensure that they have smooth businesses along the lake. That is 1. 2, I'm looking into our women. They need fish banders just to save themselves during the rains and extreme sunshine in the day. In my docket, I may not provide to the standards, but we can provide for them as shelter. a shelter, even if they are shades of iron sheets. Simple that they can use to accommodate themselves and do that. I believe in partnership. I will voice out for them. That is representation. Through networking, through bringing into the attention of the governor of Homa Bay County, which herself, she has also toured and seen the need of the women, the need of what should be done along the Lake region. I will give a push and a follow-up. That is on one perspective.
I hear you talking, and I'm liking the fact that I'm hearing you talking of representation, highlighting these issues, mainstreaming the issues that need to be addressed, being an advocate for the people. Now, once you've gone to the governor and you've told the governor all these things as Bensouda and you've walked out of the office, you don't have any power of making her do what she ought to be doing. Then there's also the county assembly. How do you get the job done? Apart from just advocating, because you can then go back to the people and tell them, you heard me talking and I've told the governor, but then the governor is not doing.
Yeah, that's what I always refer to in my many years, observing the politicians, how they operate. Did you hear me say?
Yeah.
Like now I'm in the studio. Did you hear me talk?
Yeah.
But the question is, after talking, what then? That is my problem. That is my headache. How do we do effective, efficient, relevant, and quality representation? And that is even why I say there are several gaps in our regulations that hinders even effective representation. As a project planner, I will start from the inception of a project. That is engaging the stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders? For instance, let me talk about starting cooperative societies for cereals in Dewa. That is a rich place. Starting blending of juice, which is one of the items in the governor's manifesto, as I read. I do not have the resources to do that. But I have the means of talking, collaborating, asking, and following up. I also need to do a write-up. It is not just talking and making noise. Did you hear me? As a professional, I must have a presentation to the desks of relevant bodies who can assist and make this a realization. And this will include the perspective of the ideologies of the stakeholders. Who is a stakeholder in a constituency? Who is key? The MCS. When they are consulted, they are very bright people who knows how projects can be implemented in their wards. They will give you the ideas which you can later on synthesize at technical level, look for funds, and that is done. So I can be an advisory to the governor in terms of sharing as people who are representing the people at the county level. I do not have the powers to force him or her to implement. But if somebody is really for leadership of the county, will buy in an idea. That is one strategy. Two strategy is to ensure, because at times we realize that projects and funds are there. And these have been experienced in county governments. The land is not there. How is the coordination of the departments? We are here to question and see and observe and read how there is that coordination so that we don't find a project and the project goes, the fund is returned back because there was no availability of land. The governor should be up to task to do that. We are there to watch. We are there to advise. We are there to interrogate. The county assembly is quite critical in such kind of matters. When we engage with them, when we ensure that public participation is done more frequently and objectively, I think we are there to represent and to advise and to implement. Yeah.
From what you're saying, obviously these are things, having been brought up in Homa Bay, done everything that you've done until this point. So you obviously are intimate with the issues that need to be sorted out. And one would hope that you're coming from a point of servitude. You have told us that it is then necessary for you to work in concert with the others, MCAs, the governor at that level, other members of parliament within the county. How do you then ensure, because these are things that you're saying, how then do you ensure that the accountability is across board? Things that you can be saying right now maybe do not rhyme with what somebody else wants to do. How can you ensure that the very things you told people that you would do when you were campaigning that they will actually be done. Because I think that's where we are now. People are looking at the point whereby the way business was done before is not the way it's going to be done today. People cannot make roadside declarations and then get into office and decide to do whatever they want. People are watching. Kenyans are hoping that those women are hoping that actually this thing that they suffer from morning to night will actually be done, that they will see some development, that they will see some progress. By the time, not even 5 years, by the time the next few months come to a close, will they be able to see some successes?
Thank you so much. I want to answer your question by focusing mainly on my mandate as the woman representative or MP, county MP. When I was campaigning, I want to attest that I have very specified agenda or manifesto that I have. When I looked into the financial resources, into the kitty of Ngaf, I find it very limited in terms of what work is expected by our people. Which going way forward, already we have started questioning. But what I believe in, that single coin which is in the kitty must address my manifesto. If I am unable to address the 100%, I should give proper feedback to my people. This is where we are. This is what I plan to do. This is what I've done. This is what is pending. And I explain the reason as to why it is pending. One of the things that I have in my manifesto is environmental conservation through simple tree planting. This I expect to achieve in 2 ways or 3. Number 1, organizing youth groups to start initiatives for tree planting nurseries. 2, in collaboration with the forestry officers. 3, in ensuring that our schools and institutions are served with the tree seedlings, because I know the economic impact of having trees in regions. That is 1. I don't need to go to the governor to ensure that is implemented. But I can go to the governor and other agencies, that is partnership and collaboration, to ensure that the rigor and the percentage with which we want to realize the improved trees within our county is done. That I'm not hindered. So that one I'll be held accountable. Number 2, empowerment of the women. There is an area where we have gone wrong. You cannot give Wanjiku money without confirming the capacity of Wanjiku to manage that money, without assessment of the business ideas that they have. Number 3, the situation of even these groups. I think I want to be more accountable. I'm not saying that somebody who was there was not accountable. I'm talking on what I stand for as my principle. And because I have the professionalism in me, and when it comes to SMEs, one of the things that I teach at the university is entrepreneurial management. And so I understand the basics of capacity building. I believe the Ngaf Kitty, which of course I want to be inducted in the couples of days to come. So I do not want to preempt what it really entails, because I've just gathered, and because I'm a researcher, I've tried to find out what it entails. Allow me not to preempt, because probably there could be changes which have not been officially communicated to. But I'm looking forward into capacity building. I'm looking forward into table banking. I'm looking forward into savings of the women. That Wanjiku, the very, very common Mwananchi mama in the village, so that they are uplifted. Just 2 to mention. And I want to go into the education sector. Somebody questioned me during my campaigns. What you're saying, you're not a governor. You don't know your mandate. I know my mandate. I'm a girl. If I'm representing the women also, the girls are there, the boys are there. When I'm talking about education, I know how far I've come from. It will be selfish if I don't represent them education-wise. How? Sanitation services, mentorship programs, collaborating with sponsors, looking for them sponsorship. Even right now, as I'm being trained, inducted as an MP at Safari Park Hotel, I've already engaged Cooperative Bank as a person. I know maybe we shall be attached to them, Cooperative Bank, Family Bank. I'm asking them, our women saves in these banks. It should not just be trade. But are you really alive, and clear guidelines are there, policy implementation on your corporate social responsibilities? Can I give you students even as early as Friday so that we go back to the village and we tell them, yes, I was at Safari Park Hotel for 1 week, but this is what I have for Homa Bay County. Actually, they're giving me appointments today and tomorrow. And I'm really on their neck, because it should be a 2-way traffic. not just savings, getting profits from us. What is it for our young generation? That is a bit of how I want to realize my manifesto as a woman rep.
There are very many questions that I have, including, whether you think we should retain these funds. But let's talk about that after this break. It's 29 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. The person that you're hearing talking today is the woman rep for Homa Bay County, first-time member of Parliament, Dr. Joyce Osogo Bensouda. She's here with us in the studio. Bensouda is her name. It's not AKA Bensouda. No. Now it's officially her name. She's telling us about, championing the rights of women across the country and taking up that role as a woman rep for Homa Bay County. What do we expect to see?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Talking about championing the issues about women. And you've talked about, opening doors, representation of the people. Now let's talk about the expectation of the people. They expect to see tangible things that Mheshimiwa has done. And you even mentioned, Ngaf, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, which is the money that's allocated and managed under the supervision of the woman rep. And then there's the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Already, the Supreme Court has said the 2013 law, which was the CDF without the NG, is unconstitutional. There's a case in court about the CDF with the NG, the current one. During the induction of members of Parliament, the boss of the CDF fund, the chief executive Yusuf Mbuno, said various constituencies will henceforth receive varying amounts of NG CDF, which is a deviation from the previous financial year where all constituencies were getting equal share. He says it will now be dependent on the number of wards that a constituency has. So a constituency with more wards gets more money, a constituency with fewer wards gets less money. But also in terms of NGC, Ngaf itself, my question to you is, do you think CDF of any form should be retained now that development is devolved and there's a county government in place?
Thank you so much. In my straight opinion, that should be retained.
Why?
Precisely.
Why?
I want to say that the workload which the county governments have is quite wide. I told you during my introduction that one of the things that I've done is being the Minister for Roads. We made budgets which were approved, and we expected those funds to be disbursed by the national government. One, the disbursement was quite slow. Two, the full budget was not disbursed. Even under the budgets that we did, I realized that quite a lot of projects were supposed to be factored in, which could not. So that means we do not have adequate financial resources. Even as county governors, they do not have what is enough. And number two, it should be retained because even what we had before the dispute started arising, we realized that we're still dependent on investors, partners, and other supports. That shows that what the counties require is a lot. And if you do not pull up resources from various quarters, that might not be adequate. Talking about scrapping off the CDF funds, have we been convinced that what has been scrapped off is factored in the increment and under regulation on what the county government should receive? That is my question. As a stakeholder, not as an MP. Number four, we know that CDF has done quite a lot, especially in areas or constituencies which the MPs used this financial resource prudently. It was big pluses, not a plus. We can see modern primary schools. We can see police stations constructed. We can see bursaries given to our students. In my view, actually, if I was a sitting judge, I would not even listen to that case. That CDF needs to stand.
So it has,
so that the continued support that we get is sustained.
I guess the question is, Mheshimiwa, whether MPs should be involved at all in the CDF.
I also want to answer you by asking you a question. In your view, if you're the one who is supposed to be responsible for this, why do you think the NCA, the MP, should not be involved? Who then is going to be involved? That's my question. Because I believe these funds are managed by committees and other guidance and regulations.
But do you think...
pause so that...
I know what you're asking.
Yes.
I want to throw back the question.
Yes.
Do you think that those that say that in some areas, and even you've talked about it yourself, there are some areas where the MPs have not prudently utilized the resources? It has been used as a campaign tool or as a tool to demonstrate that an MP is relevant on the ground. Development does not have to happen through the MP. If there's a committee that has been established at the constituency level and it's the one that is determining the development projects to be spearheaded or to be started through CDF, why does an MP have to be involved? In cases, we hear of MPs actually determining who sits on the committee. So they end up benefiting from the 100 million shillings every year.
I've understood you, and you have raised several issues in one question. Yes, you have asked, must development come through an MP? Let me come to our institutions. We have different primary schools where I taught. You find others from the rural areas, they'll be ranked in top 100. What are others with facilities doing that they cannot fall under top 100? So in any, that in itself is development. I come to the bank institutions. The banks which are doing very well, and they're also ranked. Those are also development. We have, for example, Equity Bank. They have programs that they come to the SMEs down on the ground, isn't it? I want to ask you, does Absa Bank do that? I'm not attacking them, but I'm just giving examples of development and different institutions. So I'm also saying when it comes to constituencies, these are also other institutions. And in the event that performance is questionable, I want to ask myself, aren't we having bodies in Kenya who are supposed to be responsible for conducting investigations and informing the Kenyans on the right information? Must we rely on rumors? Are there evidence? Even myself, when I talk about there are those who perform well and there are those who do not perform well, I'm relying on probably benchmarks.
Okay. Did it not give some kind of power to a member of parliament knowing that this 100 million a year account of CDF, that there was something that it did in terms of relevance, in terms of, longevity of tenure? Did it not do something for just knowing that you had some kind of control over that? Is that not what would then be a sour spot now when you hear that that is then removed from under
I would not concur, because for those who have not performed, the constituents, just let me take that angle. Let me retreat a little bit and say this. In any job description, you are told the expectation of what your roles and responsibilities are.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong when an MP says that I have done this to my constituent. They are sent there to represent their people and to ensure that developments are in their constituencies. To me, I have no problem by them saying that as an MP of Karachuonyo, I have constructed this school, that school, and that school. Through the only thing which remains that they should join that clause, if I may put it, through the mandate and how you elected me to do, I have performed. Not just talking about as Bensouda, I've done this. As Bensouda, the woman representative, you elected me to represent you, to do this job. And through what you gave me to do, I am able to account for A, B, C, D. Now, if they find that I'm suitable, that they can sustain me also to continue serving them, I have no problem. It is the right of the constituents in the event, because we have civic education, which I also realized we need to improve as leaders in conducting civic education so that our constituents are really at par and they understand exactly what different institutions entail, their rights, their roles, so that all these are done. So I want to believe that in that course, there's no problem. But I also want to blame our constituents to some extent. If you feel that the leader whom you elect is not doing his work, why not exit that office? You are there. They are the employers. They can equally exit the person and not sustain the person. I want us to take caution. I know there is a mix of the 100 millions. Probably some people feel on which I think you may ask or you may not ask. But I want to mention that the misuse of these funds is what I also object. What am I talking about misuse? If you don't spend this fund for the purpose as to why it is given, to me that is not right. Probably I don't utilize it and then I just do it on handouts. I'm a little bit cautious on handouts because is it sustainable? But I'm keen on a project and I talk on that project that I shall have done. To me, that is smart enough.
We've seen some clever jobs being done. So it's a project, but it's a project whose cost is heavily inflated. And of course, we know the beneficiaries of such projects. So yes, you will see a classroom that has been built using CDF, but how much did it cost? How much should it have cost? Those are the questions that keep arising. And I take your point that yes, we even have the CDF board, we have relevant checks and balances to make sure that CDF is utilized well. You've mentioned handouts, so let's go there.
Before we go to handouts,
Yes.
you have mentioned something very interesting, which I was keen on, and you have just touched pretty on the classrooms. When I was the Minister for Roads, Transport and Public Works, there are issues of BQs. We are the ones who are developing BQs for the department. Remember I told you I'm Bensouda. So one of the things that my technical teams advised me, which I bought in very fast, the cost of constructing a classroom. We know the capacity should be 40 to 45.
Yep.
But we realize that the allocation that probably is given to construction of classrooms, either they are inflated or under quoted. So there should be standard BQ developed for these classrooms. I want to agree with you that there are some people who are sleeping on their jobs. Because in that event, why don't we use the resources that we have to do things rightly under qualified and practical implementable BQs so that we have our classrooms rightly done rather than complaining that the CDF fund should be scrapped off, but we have not looked into what are the benefits, what are the challenges in implementation, what are the gaps. I believe that the oversighting is the assembly. So if the constituency fund is not done, we have ward representative who are the MCS. And up to the constituency level, an alarm should be raised. In an event that somebody doesn't raise an alarm, why do you complain? Even by the time it was being instituted, what were the frameworks? The gaps were missing. We need to fill in those gaps, but do not scrap CDF.
Retain it.
Retain it.
On to handouts. There's an expectation, and we hear this all the time, the complaints by members of parliament. In fact, even when you talk about retaining of allowances and keeping your pay high, it's because there's all this cash expectation from your constituents. Is this a good way to go? Do you support it? How do you think this should be done? In terms of people waking up every morning and coming to Bensouda's home and they have a list of needs. Hospital bills, there's a burial taking place, there's school fees for a child, there is a harambe somewhere. All these are bills that are loaded onto the member of parliament.
I feel pain for them.
For who?
For the MPs. I want to say, and I feel pain for my community. The truth, we are suffering. Our communities are suffering. An MP cannot be a hospital. Who is it that should provide for healthcare services to the people? So that is not a burden of Honorable Latif, if I may use your name. Number two, our people are suffering. There is no employment. I know there are incidences also whereby some of us are just lazy. We cannot use the local available resources to sustain our livelihoods. There are also people who are just born lazy. Wake up, sit, rest, and wait for somebody to give a handout. They're there in the society, and that's what constitutes a society. There are people who are aggressive in finding for themselves their livelihoods. And they don't believe in a politician's funds or finances. They don't even go near them. They are so busy that they don't even have time to look for those handouts. I want to say that there is weakness in our institutions. I want to say that the government must wake up to ensure equity, which is embedded in our constitution in distribution of resources. I want to say that the existing gaps in oversighting should be rigorized and practical, so that the roles of the institutions is not a burden of an MP. Otherwise, you are pushing the MP so much beyond the wall, not to the wall. It's such that, because it's the one who is there like a savior in the community. You have come home, you are from the office, people need these resources. You cannot run away from them. They believed in you, and that's why they elected you, and they knew that their problems are going to be sorted out by you, either by representing them in the parliament, ensuring that resource flow. So I even want to say that the avenues of flow of resources, the budget approval should be timely so that county governments get their money. The other supporting institutions, MCAs, the women reps, the senators, every institution should be practically functioning. I'm not saying that they've collapsed, but there are gaps, there are lapses. Now, when all these things are not addressed, the burden is with the representative who is on the grassroots. So I want to believe that handouts is a bad concept. And actually, during my campaigns, somebody asked me, I'd just left being a lecturer. Quietly, I'd started going into consultation. It's not just I resigned and started, okay? But I was supporting here and there. And because they were pushing me, as I said, they thought when you start campaigning, it means you have a lot of money.
Yeah, you have cash.
Yes,
You have cash. So you should be giving out. So mine was the reverse. I would go to a woman group. Actually, I didn't even tell some, don't set for me people. Don't tell people to sit down there and wait for me. If you move around, you'll find people who are serious with their lives. So I just decided today it is this direction. I didn't tell anybody where I'm coming to. I find youth groups discussing, doing table banking, give them 5,000 shillings for table banking. I went somewhere, they tell me they have bank account, like in SECA, I deposited for women 10,000 shillings. In my own capacity, with my own little resources, not any resources given tasked for any docket, because I'd not been elected.
So you're not breaking down 20 bob, 20 bob, 20 bob, 20 bob per youth,
Everybody.
100
I
per
really
woman.
hate it. I really hate it because by the end of the day, what can even 200 shillings or 100 shillings do to somebody who is having a family? It's just that at times, maybe towards the after nominations, somebody has come to listen to your policies. You just call it logistics. For the transport to come to listen to
Very
you,
clever term used by politicians.
not clever term,
Logistics.
but even if, for example, Mr. Latif, you come to my rally,
Yes.
probably you have come a distance of 10 kilometers, and you're not employed. You're self-employed.
Yes.
You have closed your business to come and listen to my policies.
Yes.
To me, it's not bad to give you transport back home, but some people, they even come and just go back. Can 200 shillings sustain you? It cannot. Even for how long?
It can't.
It can't. So I would want to say that we should shift from the dimension of the perspective of waiting up to the time we are almost to be re-elected, then we start moonlighting. And then when it comes to the last year of campaign, then we start giving logistics, which is 100 bob and unsustainable. And this can only be realized if the institutions that we have in the country are right to the task, so that the burden is not for the MPs. It starts from the top and it cascades down. That's my take.
Do you hope that the people for whom you will represent, that you've already begun to represent, will hold you accountable? Will say, wait a minute, Mheshimiwa, this is not what we agreed, or we can't see anything happening here. Do you hope that they will be able to call you out should anything not go according to what you've said? Because you've been very public about your declarations, you've been very public about the things that you want to do, and coming from the place where accountable governance has to be the order of the day, how would you then expect people to make sure that you are doing what you said?
As a Democrat, I know it at the back of my mind. I must be held accountable. If you're a leader who doesn't want to be held accountable, then you don't understand what you're doing. As a leader, I expect to provide feedback. I made public declarations, as I told you. My public declarations are very simple. Supporting SMEs, girl child empowerment, capacity building, providing for market infrastructural facilities, restructuring my administration structure, ensuring that we have NHIF card, Linda Mama. So these things are things which I must do through my own resources as NGAF, which I shall be disclosed to. At the moment, as we are still being orientated, we are just talking about percentages. Now we are going to full induction, whereby we are going to see. Number two, I told you partnership. So I need to do all this so that when I'm accountable, when I'm being held accountable, I'm able to explain. I agree with you. It will be a great mistake if I do not want my constituents to hold me accountable. How will I expect them in 2027? Because definitely I'll also vie in 2027. But we have not started working. If I do not serve them well, definitely I don't think they'll have business with me. If I serve them well, they will have business with me. So feedback is important. Where there are constraints, I need to walk this journey with them. I cannot walk it alone.
Okay.
When I walk with them, holding me accountable, we shall also do it participatorily. Yes.
Let's conclude the conversation. I mean, 1 hour is a short time when you have
it is.
Bensouda in the studio.
It is.
Bensouda, you'll be one of 349 members in the National Assembly. There have been complaints, we've even raised them here, about the 12th Parliament and it being ineffective. It's a budget-making parliament, it's appropriating funds, and yet we talk about things not happening across the country. What do you hope to do from the floor of the House to make sure that your role of legislation, oversight, and representation is well carried out?
I want to say that the country is burdened. And me being part of the 13th Parliament, I expect that we bring forth proper legislation on the floor. Number two, I expect that we work smoothly and collaboratively in our respective committees so that the bills which are touching on the lives of our people, some of them were not approved, some of them we can develop, are brought to the House. I think we should be a different 13th Parliament and address and listen into the key complaints which were there and make a way forward. Action points are critical. And I think when we work like that, we shall have addressed the people's concerns. Yes.
You are not properly constituted as a 13th Parliament in terms of gender balance. Do you think somebody should go to court and seek for the dissolution of the 13th Parliament on those grounds?
I want to say that issues of gender, I think that would be even a long debate that I would even advise that we come for it another time. So far, I want to appreciate the general increment. I do not have actual statistics for all parties by gender. Allow me address that when we shall be talking about either gender. Should you find it fit to invite me another time?
We will invite you.
Yes.
That one is a date.
Yeah.
The Honorable Dr. Joyce Osogo Bensouda, the woman rep for Homa Bay County, has been our guest this hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.